to Happy Wife, Happy Life.
We're your hosts. I'm Kendahl Landreth.
And I'm Jordan Myrick.
And we are two incredibly unqualified,
but deeply in love comedians who are here to help you with all things relationships. And today we're talking dating while bisexual with Grant OBrien. Grant!
Hi there.
Thanks for coming on the podcast. We love you and we're happy you're here.
I'm delighted to be here. I'm delighted to talk about dating. That's so exciting.
We're so happy you're here and we're so happy you're bisexual.
I'm happy about that myself.
Oh,
it's really lovely being bisexual. I can't recommend it highly enough. I'm glad I chose it.
I think it's special, and I feel sad looking back sometimes because I identified as bisexual for a really long time. And I think it's very fun and very good and very free. But now sometimes I'm like, oh, I think I'm just gay. So that's kind of what I've settled on currently at this time.
There is like a line about bisexuality that it's like it's a stop on the train to gay town.
Sure.
And I think that's true if like you're talking to people that are in their 20s.
Yes.
Which is like, well, I don't know. Who cares what people in their 20s think in general?
Sure.
Like they don't get to decide things.
Yes.
We've all agreed on that.
Mm-hmm. Kendahl, shut up.
Shut up.
I won't speak the rest of the episode.
Yeah, we've decided.
Yeah, glad to have one of my contemporaries here.
But I do agree with you. There's a lot of times people will ask me stuff and my answer is, I have no idea. People are always asking me if I'm going to have kids. And I'm like, how the hell would I know?
I feel that way, and I'm pushing 40. And I'm like, no, I'm just a little boy. How can I be expected to plan these things?
That's true, though. I mean, in a way, we're all just little boys, and we shouldn't be expected to have children because it's too crazy.
It's too scary. I don't want to do any of this scary adult stuff.
No,
I want to play video games.
100%.
Are you a Switch person or a...
I am a PC gamer.
Okay, right.
I play...
Very politically correct.
I think I play the most bisexual game, which is Planet Coaster, where you design roller coasters.
Wait, I don't know anything about this, but I love Roller Coaster Tycoon. So
This is adult Roller Coaster Tycoon. It uses like a CAD system where
What's
you can
that?
get that, like a computer-aided design system where you can get in like really granular with your angles while you're building your roller coasters. Which, while I can't offer evidence that that's bisexual, I feel that it is.
yeah, that makes sense to me.
It's very intelligent. It's very cool.
Which is
It's
a very
the harder-
bisexual thing.
You know, it's the harder version of regular Tycoon, which feels gay to me. And so maybe the harder version, would you say being bisexual is hard? You have to deal with a lot more people.
I'd say it's certainly the more annoying version, which is very bisexual.
Sure.
Is that? Am I allowed to say that bisexual people are annoying? I feel like I am.
You
Yeah.
can. We can.
We've gotten
Yeah.
hate for it in the past because
Well-
we've said it.
well, but gay people are annoying
And
too.
wasn't that kind of annoying when you got hate for it?
was.
Well, that was probably like, golly, okay, here we go.
I think in a way all queer people are annoying, right? Because I think we've created this community that is really accepting, which is so nice and wonderful in so many ways. But then sometimes people are like, but what about me? And I'm like, no, you're bad. It actually doesn't matter that you're gay.
What bothers me is you as a person, not the
Yes.
fact that you're queer.
Absolutely. And like
That's
you're
my favorite
still-
thing about you.
Yes, you're still bad here, right? Like
Yeah.
you don't just get a pass on being the most annoying person I've ever met because you're also a lesbian.
Yeah, you're like, that's the only redeeming quality. It's like, your
100%.
personality is the problem.
Absolutely.
When did you know you were bisexual?
Oh, God, that's a good question. I said to myself, you are bisexual in college. But by that time, I had done sexual things with men and women and still had such like a... For the longest time, I said I lost my virginity when I was 19 because that's the first time I slept with a woman. I slept with a guy when I was 15, but that was so on the other side of the firewall for me that it's like, well, that's just something I do. That's not about anything
100%.
other than whatever that. I left it so unexamined for so long. So when did I realize I was bisexual? I'm going to say college, but
Cool.
I should have known before.
Sure, absolutely.
Your high school boyfriend begs to differ,
really,
but
really like side-eyeing that college statement.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's hard to know, though, because there are so many things. I remember I kissed so many girls starting as early as middle school because they would be like, well, this is to practice for when we kiss boys. And I would be like, okay. And I don't know if it was gay for them. It was very much gay for me. But I think because we had put the label on it of like, well, it's not gay, And if you say it's not gay, it can't be gay, even if you're a woman being fingered by another woman. If you say it's not gay, it's not gay.
Now, this is something in the gay scene and in the gay male scene. Tell me if this is true for lesbians as well. It really gets eroticized, the like no homo of it all. The like, oh, we're just two dudes. This is just like we're just two dudes in the locker room doing locker room things.
It's hard because stereotypically, female friendships are very touchy.
Yes.
And loving.
That must be so confusing.
It is confusing.
That's got to be so confusing.
I had these two friends in high school who gay now.
Sure.
We used to go to each other's house after school and nap together and like cuddle.
Nap together.
And be like, well, we're just so sleepy. And we would like play with each other's hair and be like, oh, that feels so good. I love how close we are as friends.
I love how tired I am.
And I'm so sleepy all the time. We would take these long naps and like fight for who got to be in the middle. And
fight for who got to be in the middle.
Insane.
Oh, man.
Insane. And of course we're all gay now, but at the time in our heads we're like, this is just really close friends.
Yeah.
Which, for some people, what's hard is that is what really close female friendships are like.
Yeah, I don't think there's as much of the infatuation with no homo in the lesbian scene as there is in the gay male scene. That being said, I do think there is a sector of lesbians who really like the idea of like turning, quote unquote, a woman.
Their undeniable sexual prowess.
Yes,
just
and I'm sure
cannot
there's
be
the same
resisted.
thing with gay men. Yeah,
I
and it's
think
such a small percentage. I don't think I really never encounter those people, but I do know that they allegedly exist.
It's a heck of a fantasy, no matter what.
Sure, but this is what I'll say. I'm like, even if that's your fantasy, like, be for real with yourself. You're not turning a straight girl if she wants to have sex with you. She's already kind of gay.
You've given this person permission to pursue a thing that they. If you're turning a straight person gay, that's a problem. That's
Something's
actually really dark.
You're doing a
think
spell.
About it. Yeah, that's no good.
It's witchcraft of sorts.
Can I ask?
Please.
We have so many. I always am like, our whole demographic who listens to this podcast is bisexual people because every question is like, I'm bisexual. What should I do? I'm bisexual. Is this normal that I feel? And I always feel so bad because we are not. You've had some experience identifying.
Well, I identified as bisexual for like maybe 15 years, like a really long time.
But I do always feel bad where I'm like, so I'm just to say, I'm so happy you're here.
I'm delighted to be here.
Yeah.
And actually, can I ask about that?
Please.
What was it? When did that start to change for you? And was it an emotional change? Was it a numbers game of like, how long am I going to keep claiming this?
Yes, I think for me, I'm a big believer that sexuality for many people is very fluid.
I agree.
And I think there's a lot of people who want to be cops about sexuality and gender and terminology and things. And I'm like, if that's you, get away from me. People will be like, if you've ever been attracted to a man, you can't be a lesbian. I'm like, shut up. Like, shut up. You're so annoying. But for me, the shift was I always identified as bisexual and I would hook up with women, but I didn't really know any like out women that were actively looking to date other women. And I certainly did not know any non-binary people. That seems like a thing that now it feels like so many people are non-binary, which is incredible.
The world is good
and
bad.
Yeah,
and bad, but good right now.
Good in some ways, yes. And so it was just like the only people interested in dating me were men, and I knew for a long time I was attracted to women. I also grew up around a lot of gay men, so I was like, well, gay is man. I'm not really sure what my thing is, but gay is for boys. And as I got older, I just kept being in relationships with men that were not good. I was almost exclusively in bad relationships with men who we didn't particularly seem to like each other, or they didn't particularly seem to like me. And it was very tumultuous and very hard. And after my last relationship with a man, I was like, you know what? I think I'm going to try like just dating women and non-binary people for a little while and see how that feels.
See if it doesn't suck quite so bad.
Yeah. Well, just see if it feels like more true to me.
Sure.
And then so I started just dating women and non-binary people. And like immediately, even the casual dates I was going on, I was like, oh yeah, this just feels like a more appropriate fit.
It felt more right.
Just made more sense, yes. But I always say this on this podcast too. If tomorrow Kendahl was like, I realize that I'm a trans man, I'd be like, great, I still love you. I'm not like, some people are so attached to the gay or lesbian label that they're like, that is what rules the world around me. And for me, it's not. I identify with a lot of lesbian culture. I feel gay, but also I think once I also identify as like gender nonconforming, and once you start thinking more about gender and sexuality, things can like break down really quickly, at least for me. So that was the difference for me.
If you look too closely at it, it's like, oh, it's all bullshit. Like it's all a construct that we're all God. Hey, smoke some of this. It's all a construct.
It's kind of what we do on this podcast.
I love it.
We kind of dissect everything. But what is the hardest thing you would say about being bisexual?
The hardest thing about being bisexual.
And then we'll get to the positives later, don't we?
No. Ugh, I get to be annoying. The hardest thing about being bisexual, I would say, you get twice the number of people to get rejected by. You get shut down by the whole population.
Constantly.
By just it's not just men, it's not just women. You get rejected all the time.
Right.
All the time.
Yeah.
That's the answer. Is like, oh man, it's twice the opportunities to fall flat on my face.
Do you feel like you're better received by men or women or non-binary people? What do you feel like is your like the number one Grant O'Brien fans in terms of dating? Who is that group of people?
I think even beyond Grant O'Brien, for bisexual men, gay men are the more ready audience. I think because they're also queer. Because it's to be queer is the difference between straight and queer is much bigger than the difference between bi and gay.
Yes.
And so there's already a shared language, I think, with other queer men. Or other queer women. I would say the cool part about being bi is dating bi people sometimes, which is a lot of fun. So the most fun you can have is like, another bi or queer. I won't say the most fun. A lot of fun you can have is having that like discovery process with someone else. I think is awesome.
Yeah.
But the worst part is, everyone's mean.
Wow.
Yeah.
I didn't even think about that because I feel like, especially when I lived in New York and I was single, if I was on the train, I would see, a girl would come in with Doc Martens on with a pair of drumsticks, and I'd be like, well, we're about to be transported into a cinematic romance
We're
moment.
on the same team.
Right. And I would be like, even though I was not going to ask this person out, you just have the whole train ride to kind of be like, hello. And the thought of doing that with every person, it feels overwhelming.
Yes.
And it is.
Yes.
And are you okay?
No. I mean, obviously no. I'm a mess. It's really screwy, but it's fun. Oh, I missed that in New York. The train boyfriend or it's like, look,
my God,
just
yeah.
for these 15 minutes, you're my whole world.
Yes.
It's a pleasure.
And it feels magic.
It does.
It feels like you've had sex when you get off the train and you've only made eye contact.
But boy, if you make eye contact and it's good, I will take that over sex.
Oh yeah.
Wow.
No. And I used to
Sometimes.
Are you sure? Yeah. Have either one of you ever hooked up with someone that was your train boyfriend or girlfriend?
No.
Okay, me neither.
No.
I always too I would come up with these different personas on the train too, where like I would kind of like pull out a book and just make up who I was. And in my head, everyone was watching me on the train. I sound like a narcissist, but I really was like, everyone's looking at me. And speaking of the drum, speaking of the drumsticks, I remember there was one time I like had my headphones on and I was kind of like doing this with my hands, and I was like, I bet people think I'm a drummer.
Yes.
You get to try on all sorts of personalities in New York.
Yeah, I used to put my makeup on the train and just
Crazy.
be like, people wonder where I'm going. People wonder where I'm going. I'd be putting on like cat eye eyeliner like on the F train.
Anytime I was on a train and someone was putting their makeup on, my instinct, very judgy, but I would go, they got to get their shit together.
You gotta.
Why are you putting your makeup on the train?
Leave your house 5 minutes earlier.
Right? I don't get it. When people are always doing their makeup in the car.
Well, I thought it was cool. I thought it was cool and I thought it looked mysterious.
There's just I'm like, to me, maybe though, I'm always like, then just don't put on makeup. I'm so quick. That's the first thing that's cut from my routine. I'm like, we're not putting on makeup today. But so whenever when people do it in the car, I'm just like, calm yourself.
I thought it was cool.
I think it's very uncool, but I would also do it because I can't leave my house on time. But have to get my shit together.
You have to.
I have
right.
to.
And someone needs to tell you that.
So we're all right in a way. Wait, I want to know, how often do you sync up with another bisexual man?
To date, I suppose relatively often. Most of my like more serious things have been with bisexual people. But sync up is an interesting.
Yeah, there could be many reasons. How many times do you play clarinet with them? How many times?
Like there's a lot of ways I could think about syncing up.
Sure.
And
I'll leave that up to you.
I don't even ask. If I don't know their name, I don't always know their orientation.
100%.
Absolutely.
But I have enough information to guess.
All right. I love it. I feel like I never see bi for bi men, and I think that would be sweet. I'd like to see more of that.
We were talking about you identifying as bi, and then coming. To close the loop on that. I am probably, if I like look at like on paper the definitions of thing, I'm probably pan.
Sure.
But to realize that I was like you say, like this felt more right. Like when I realized I was bi, when I came out to myself as bi, it felt so right which is why no one should be annoying about labels, because it's like, I don't know, we're all rounding up to something anyway.
It's so personal.
Yeah.
I think it is so interesting because it is all made up, obviously. Just everything is so made up. And I remember going to a therapist that was like specifically for gender. And I was like I was a pan. I still go to her, but just for regular therapy now. But I was just panicked where I was like, well, I feel this way, but I also feel this way. And so I know I should use this label, but this label doesn't feel good to me. But I'll just go by it because I know I have to. And she was like, oh, you actually don't have to.
You have to.
You actually really don't have to. She was like, actually, all these are invented to make you feel good. So really, you can identify as whatever you want. But I was like, at the time I was like, oh, right. Because I was just starting to identify something that felt so uncomfortable for me because I was like, well, I have to, because that was what I am, I guess.
Because I am supposed to, because on paper, this all adds up to that.
Yes. And it's like, it's so not a thing you will even probably ever have to share with many people who you're not dating or maybe best friends with.
It's such as soon as labels start to cause you pain, put them down. They should be good things for you. And if they're not, they super don't matter. They super don't matter. So don't even stress.
I know. I felt like I was putting myself through an obstacle course. Yeah. Like, oh boy, got it. And it's so interesting. So I think because I remember when I came out as a lesbian, that was a huge fear, which I think a lot of people have, where they're like, well, once I come out, then that's it. So even if I fall in love with a man, you can't date that person because you're gay, and that's a choice you've made. And it's like, absolutely.
Well, there are people too online that would be like, well, if that is the case, then you were never really a lesbian, because lesbian is a concrete thing. And I'm like, if you believe that and that's how you feel for you, good for you. But like literally no one cares what you think. Do you know what I mean? Like nobody cares about you and nobody cares what you think.
Yeah.
Shut up.
Yeah. It's okay. Well, let's not talk.
Yeah,
then that's like, fine.
It's fine. And I think that's something a lot of times that I feel like gets lost in the sauce within the LGBTQIA plus community, is what is actually harmful and what is something that you just like maybe don't agree with, or you think is like annoying, or something that you think is wrong, versus like something that's actually harmful. You know what I mean? Where it's like me being like, I identify as gay or a lesbian, but also acknowledge that for me, sexuality can be fluid. If you're like, I identify as a lesbian, but I think sexuality for lesbians is not fluid, I'm like, neither one of our opinions is harmful to each other.
Yeah, there's frankly no reason for us to talk in the first place.
Absolutely.
We don't have to. Your opinion doesn't have to change me, and my opinion doesn't have to change you.
And isn't it interesting that it's like because I'm like, well, when in life are we even having these conversations?
Never.
And the only answer is the internet.
Yes.
And it's like, if you take the internet away, we just wouldn't have to have any of these fucking conversations.
Well, also sometimes I realize I'm arguing with someone online who is ultimately 12, and then
which brings me back to like, you've got to be like 50 for me to give a shit what you say.
100%. I'm like looking at their bio and they're like, you know, like pansexual, gender nonconforming, Anderson Cooper Middle School, whatever. I'm like, that is your child, and I have to stop arguing with you.
I'll see Jordan typing like this, and I'm like, check the profile and calm down.
It's a child. It's always a child.
It certainly is.
It's always a child.
Or an elderly person.
But not about gay stuff.
Sure, but about some other stuff where you're like, let's just let him die off in peace.
Yeah, what you're saying right now is going to be so untrue even to you in 10 years. So it doesn't need to be true to me right now.
Absolutely.
Yes.
How would you identify the difference between pansexual and bisexual and queer? I feel like I have an answer for it, but I feel like people are always like arguing about whether or not bisexual is excluding non-binary people, if it's transphobic, whatever. I don't agree with that, but I want to hear your thoughts.
I use queer as a catch-all. I use queer as like as not straight. As I understand the definitions, bi means attracted to men and women. Pan means attracted to all genders. I think bi resonated with me first because it was 2005.
Yeah.
So it was all genders was relatively new.
Yeah.
And certainly pansexual was. I don't know if I heard the word until after I was already out as bi.
And you want to do a second coming out. That's,
No. However, something they don't tell you before you come out is that you're constantly like every new job,
God, it's exhausting.
You have to decide if I want this Uber driver to know that I'm queer based on our conversation, or if I just want to be like, yeah, I don't know, maybe I'll meet some women tonight. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Every interaction too. I thought you'd think I'm like, Jordan and I will walk into an event arm in arm with our engagement rings on, kissing each other, and people are like, and you two, you.
How do you know each other?
Help
and this
me.
must be your best friend.
Yeah.
Yes. And I'm like, it's so interesting because if you'd been like, oh, you guys are partners and we weren't, we would be like, oh no, we're friends. But they're so scared to call us partners, so we're constly, still having to come out. Any doctor's appointment? Oh boy.
Oh
Oh
God!
my God. Nothing like a doctor's
They're
appointment
begging
as a
me to
queer
get on birth
person.
control, and every time I say it's really okay, and they're like, please, you gotta.
Folks, I'm way ahead of you. I promise.
I've been doing abstinence
Let me
for
tell you.
years.
Yeah.
A beautiful thing.
To be clear, what we do is an abstinence.
No, but I think for their concerns, it is.
I just want to be
For
clear with the
what they're-
audience. We're pounding and it's
Sure.
awesome.
Look.
We're not doing abstinence.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like what I've heard people say recently is bisexual is attracted to your people of your gender and people of other genders, and pansexual is attracted to all genders. I feel like is always the definition I hear of those two things. I don't fundamentally understand the difference personally.
And the difference is made up and not real in general. So that's
guess
the
that's
most
true.
important thing to remember about bi and pan is ultimately meh.
Yeah, whether
Same
you're-
basic thing.
Whether you're bi or pan, I'm happy for you.
Yeah, don't even worry about it so much. Pick a label that means something to you and roll with it.
Yeah, if it feels good. Sometimes things just like make you feel good. And
Yeah.
if it feels good to you, then go for it.
Yeah.
A lot of times I say gay referring to gay male culture. So I'll talk about being gay, which I'm not, which I shouldn't do.
And we've talked to you about
Which
that.
I really shouldn't do
upsetting.
because here's why I shouldn't do it in public. In private, who gives a shit? But I do feel bad being like a persona who's bi, also claiming gayness in a confusing way.
Well, also there could be a woman who's like, we're flirting, and then they're like, no, I guess we're not.
That is a complicated part about being bi.
Sure.
What is it?
It's performing sexuality in a way that attracts everybody.
Yes.
Is
A real show.
is
A real one-man
is a real,
band.
like, oh boy.
I will say it does seem easier for you because you are very tall.
Oh yeah.
What does that mean?
Everyone is attracted to
I
someone
don't have to work
tall.
very high.
Yeah.
What do I have to do?
It's like
What
no
do I have to
matter
do?
what.
I fall.
I thought you were like,
a bunch,
people
and it's
will
still
know.
fine.
Yeah. No, I think when you're really tall, people are like, whoa, tall.
Yeah.
If you're a man.
Well, I just feel like there are moments, especially when I was single, where you're saying something to be like, I'm alluding to the fact that I am gay.
Now-
and you just have to say one thing. But I feel like with you, if you said something kind of makes you seem gay, then you have to like overcompensate and be like, but man, will I watch porn with women in it? I don't know.
Kendall, for sure. That's for sure something. Like if I'm at a party and I want to be alluring to, I have to pick a person, and I'd be like, okay, I'm the person that they're attracted to tonight, which is complex.
Yeah.
That sure is complex.
Yeah.
And annoying. Yeah, maybe that's the worst part about being bi is having to figure out how to peacock for whomever it might be that evening.
That'd be like if a peacock had to appeal to every bird.
Yeah, they can't do that.
Can't.
All those feathers.
That's not how they're built.
Yeah, that's just like you.
Yeah.
So many feathers.
I got all those feathers
on your body.
I got a big old butt and a really thin neck.
Are you different? This might be an offensive question.
No.
I'll look it up later and cut
Whatever.
it out if it is. But are you different on a date with a man or a woman?
I feel like the answer has to be yes.
Well, and it is, though I think it's more person to person. It's, the fun part for me about dating is kind of jumping into the unknown with somebody and being like, ooh, let's feel each other out a little bit. So I think I'm different for every single date rather than like men versus women.
Right.
Because
I feel like even if I went on a date with a man, the darkest part of me would become the most sexist person, where I would be like,
kind of like a cartoon of a woman.
Yeah, like I feel like if I went on a date with a man, a straight man,
sure.
And let's remove that I'm gay, but I'm just enjoying this date with this man, I all of a sudden would be like, well, pull the chair out for me.
Yeah,
you know what I mean? And I'm like, I feel like do you feel those expectations all of a sudden when you're like, when you're used, like, I feel like I'm so used to just having no gender roles in a relationship in any capacity. Then all of a sudden you're on a more of a straight presenting date. Do you feel like, oh, I got to be big man?
I know what you mean. And I think I feel that pressure I feel pressure to be that way with men and with women.
Oh, okay.
Which is probably just the kind of guy that I wind up on dates with, is the kind of guy who likes it when you pay the check or likes it when you pull out. It's
that's rough for you because you kind of famously don't have that much money.
I don't have that much money.
So
and I don't have that much money, and I also like knock chairs over all the time.
Yeah.
So the whole thing is a real mess.
Yeah.
Oh no, dating is real expensive, and I like paying the check. I think it's fun to say, especially here's I think rules, and I think rules. Whatever. Here are rules.
Give them to us.
I think whoever asks someone out on the day, whoever plans the date. Offers at the very least to pick up the check and pulls out the chair and picks someone up if you're sharing a ride. Like takes charge of the evening and says, I really like taking someone out and saying, let me show you a good time. So I think because I tend to make a lot of choices about like where we're gonna go and what we're gonna do, I also then take on the like classic man job of then running the evening of taking charge of things. But I do that men or women.
Yeah. I mean, you like to do that, and Kendahl often will be like, I'll go to take out my credit card to pay for dinner, and Kendahl will be like, no, I got this one. I'm like, we have the same money.
This isn't. No.
Why
we've
are
got
you
this.
acting like this is a thing that you're? She's
This
acting
is
like
a different.
she's Big Papa.
This piece of plastic is linked to the same
to
thing.
both of us. So
it's a real. I'm really like my dad in that way. Like my dad was, and he had no money, negative money, some would call it. And we would be out to dinner with a big group, and he would be like, "Everyone, this is on me. Order whatever you want." And my mom would be like, "Please stop. We can't do this." And I have that within me where I love to buy for the
you're a showman, and so are you.
You know what's funny?
Showman.
My dad does the same thing.
Yeah.
I get that from my dad too, where it's like I got a tab open.
Yeah. Put it on the tab. I'm like, what am I? It's bizarre. Or if my dad would want to like stand up in a restaurant and be like, "Around on me," and I have that in me somewhere.
Oh, and I'm going to someday. I'm going to be like, "Hey, 5 minutes, everybody, run to the bar."
5
shots
minutes.
on me.
Wow. All right, you want to get into some questions?
Yes. Every single week we ask our lovely viewers questions on Instagram and also on our Patreon. If you want to join our Patreon, we have a new tier out right now. If you want ad-free Happy Wife, Happy Life, that's what our podcast is called. Episodes. If you want them ad-free, there's a tier for that. And if you want extra episodes, there's a tier for that. Ooh. And if you want just sweet little messages from Jordan ever so often, there's a tier for that.
There's tiers.
There's a lot going on over there.
Can I get in that tier?
Yeah,
yes,
you can.
Can I
just text us.
Jordan say nice things?
Absolutely. You
That
know
sounds
I love
great.
you. I'll happily
You're the
do
best.
that. Kendahl, do you want to pull up the Patreon questions while I ask one from our Instagram? If I'm dating someone from the other gender, when should I reveal that I'm bi?
Well, again, rules are silly and do what is right.
No, today you decide.
But
decide.
If if I'm being asked, if I was dating a woman, when would I tell her that I'm bi? If I am being kind to myself and doing things that are supportive of my mental health and my emotional well-being, right away. In reality, I have found myself coming out to it, not lately, but I have found myself coming out to women after I've proved that I can fuck good. After it's like, and I don't know if this goes both ways, or if this is more a queer man sleeping with straight women thing. But there are a lot of women that I know that have hang-ups about, my boyfriend's actually just gay.
Sure.
And I know so many times where some monster friend of mine will get drunk and say to their husband, "I think you're gay," and it's a. Here's what it is. Here's what it is. I think it is a kindness, potentially, to offer someone evidence that you actually are attracted to them and that you aren't just on the train to Gayville and on a stopover. And I do that by boning.
You do that by just proving to them that a hole's a hole.
That I can keep my my dick hard for you.
I feel like if you had a girlfriend and we hung out with you, it would be upsetting because you would the whole time would just be like, "God, look at the ass on you!" Like way too much. We're like, we get it. You're attracted to her.
I mean, yeah,
and I love that.
Oh, it's like, look at this. Look at her. Hey, Susan, come here. Take your bra off.
Do a spin.
Do that thing where you take your bra off through the arm of your shirt. They go, no, you guys don't like this. You know, don't stop crying.
we would like watching her take her bra off through the arm of the shirt.
Sure, everyone likes that.
Yeah.
Anyway, to thoroughly answer the question, certainly, here's what I'd say. There's no good answer to this question. It's a complicated part of being bi. A date isn't a deposition. You don't owe that person that information on a first date. What you owe them is offering your whole personality. It sucks to come out to someone and then have them pull away. That sucks.
And you've had that?
Yes. When I've dated people when I've dated women, I think, again, because men that I date are also queer, and so just get it a little more. So that stinks. So to protect your little heart, I would say be out as early as you can be. And if that's a problem for that person, it was going to be a problem for that person whenever you came out. So it's not, you can save yourself a lot of service by being out earlier. That said, I don't know that the second you meet someone is necessarily the time to come out, but the earlier the better. I think is probably the best answer to that question.
It reminds me of that quote where it's like, those who don't mind matter, and those who
don't mind.
Those who matter don't mind.
Truly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think it's like that.
A cool thing about being bisexual is if you come out to someone and they're into it and they're like, "Ooh, wow, cool," which does happen.
Sure.
And it can go too far though. It can go too far in the other direction where it becomes scary.
Well, it can
too much.
It can be fetishized, and then it's a little like, I'm actually just a guy.
Yeah.
But so don't be afraid of doing it, because it could be great.
Yeah.
And when it goes well, it will be great.
Yeah.
And it won't always go well, and that sucks. And that's just part of it.
But that's part of that, and that's also part of dating in general.
Yeah.
I feel like I'll hear, I've heard a lot from girls who've only dated men, but they want to date women. They want to try dating women, but they are a little maybe in their late 20s, so they feel kind of like the ship has passed for them to. That's wrong.
The ship has sailed.
The ship has sailed. Passed by me. I was making up a new quote. The ship has passed by me in the sense that they're just like, I can't just. I'm not in college anymore. I can't get drunk and try this out. And they're very. I hear this often where they're like, I feel worried I'm going to date a woman and then realize, I'm not into this, and then I feel so bad. And I'm always like, that's kind of what dating is in general, though. Like, even though I'm attracted to women and non-binary people, the most dates I go on are me trying to decide just that thing. And there have been times I've gone on 6 dates with a woman, and then I'm like, I actually don't think I'm feeling this, and then I end it. And so sometimes,
and that's fine. That's what to do. Is like that's how you find out if you're feeling it is by hanging out for a while.
Totally.
Yes.
So I think that it's like always scary, and things can always, or people can find things out about you and be like, oh, I don't know, and then you find out they're kind of an asshole. And I don't know. I had an ex-girlfriend who one time I brought up immigration, and she said something very offensive. And then I said, well, I can't date you anymore.
Or,
you know what I mean?
It won't even be that dramatic. Or it'll be like,
No.
I
was seeing
and you don't
which
want
sucks.
that. You don't want that, right?
But
Yes.
it happens.
I was seeing a girl and I asked her how her day was, and she said, my day was poo poo pee pee. And I said, and that's a wrap on us.
Right there.
Unfortunately, for whatever reason, that was just not for me.
Yeah, I had a similar thing. I dated a girl, very brief, where she was like, oh, were you? I can't even say it.
No.
It wasn't even that bad. It just made me want to vomit.
Yeah.
Where she was like, it was supposed to be endearing, but she called me like a stinky girl. And I was like, don't fucking call me that. She's probably listening, being like, no, I was just trying to nicely tell you smell terrible.
I go like, what am I supposed to say?
Yeah.
But I was like, oh, that's a real turn off
like
for
that.
me. Don't talk to me like I'm a baby.
And that's a thing about dating early is there's gonna be something. You find out like the deep stuff a year in, but that's
Yeah.
the little stuff can be indicative of the big stuff.
I really think it can be. I think
is.
Some people will think that
Your
it's
wedding could have been pee pee poo poo themed.
Don't get me started. I'm just like, there are some things where you just feel it and you're like, oh, no, that is something that's like a difference. And I can't even really explain what it is. But it doesn't matter either way. I did her a favor by being like, I gotta go.
Truly.
Because if I had just been like, no, but that wasn't that bad. And then she kept doing stuff like that, but we kept hanging out. And the whole time I was like icked out by it. That's not helping
a partner
her.
now who they just pee pee poo poo all day.
That's dating is knocking into someone until something sticks.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I had to say that so many times.
You said it so many times, and now I'm going to break up with you after this episode. Am I bisexual even if I've never dated the same gender?
Yes. Yeah, it's in the same way we were talking before. What feels right? Does bisexual feel right for you? You're bisexual. There's no test to get into the club.
Yes.
You're in by saying you're in. So welcome.
And like I was saying before, you can change your mind at any point in time. I know women who have dated other women and then have later been like, no, I think I'm probably just straight. I don't think it has to be what you are labeling yourself as in this moment has to be indicative of every single decision and relationship you've ever made or experienced in your entire life. Yeah. I think it can be about where you are right now, what you've decided is right for you, what feels right, as we said.
You dated so many men, and I don't think you've ever been like, and God, the whole time I was just like, get me some woman. Like, that wasn't how you felt the whole time.
I think that was also a big reason why I dated men longer than I probably would have, is because so much of media, and I say this all the time on this podcast, so much of media was like, you can only be gay if you would throw up if a man ever kissed you on the lips. And I just was like, oh, that's not my experience. Yeah. And for some lesbians, that probably is their experience, and that's valid, and that's like totally fine. But for me, that was not my experience. So I felt like, oh, well, I need to identify as bisexual because I haven't
passed the test.
Yes, exactly. 100%. 100%. Yeah. Wow. Okay. Question
Here we go from the Patreon. Okay. I'd love to hear thoughts about how you or any other bisexuals feel your expression of gender may change depending on the gender identity of your partner, and in the way of explicitly queer versus hetero presenting relationships. I don't necessarily mean outward appearance/expression, but more so the traits, vibes, qualities we traditionally associate with being masc/femme. I'm curious about whether it might be something that's done to affirm a partner's gender. I'm thinking specifically of bisexual women dating straight men who may lean more towards feminine expression of gender, but then may also be into pillow princesses and take on a much more masc role with her, or a more femme role with a masked lesbian. You get it, LOL. Unfortunately, I'm very confused. Did you get it?
No, this is what you talked about earlier.
Good.
Where it's
okay,
like,
good. I got confused.
Like certain people, I think, lean into, especially if you're someone who's like along the gender spectrum. Like for me, I identify as gender nonconforming. So I think some days I feel much more masculine. Some days I feel much more feminine. Some days I feel like a blank slate. And I think that who you surround yourself with, either friends or relationships or whatever, can inform that. And I think that's fine.
I was talking before about when I'm dating a guy, it tends to be the kind of guy who wants to be taken out for a good time, and I like to take someone out for a good time. Is that a gender role, or is that just what I do?
Yes.
You know, it's and to answer the question more specifically, yeah, I think sometimes you do lean into a gender role or lean against a gender role based on what that person likes today. And
Yes.
and as long as you let them change and it doesn't mean anything
And
beyond.
you're both enjoying it.
Yeah, exactly. Like, this is something we're doing that's silly play.
Yes.
Or that's this is how we are, but we're both into it.
Like when I pick up a hammer. If I ever pick up a hammer or a screwdriver, I don't know how to build anything. I've got my sleeves rolled up. I turn into a Republican man. That's
You know what I do? Anytime I'm working on my car, I'll be out with like a white shirt with grease on, a pack of cigarettes rolled in the sleeves.
Exactly.
I don't smoke. But I'm like, yeah, I'm doing it now.
Yeah.
I'm doing the thing.
I start being a little like rude to Jordan, where Jordan's trying to talk. I'm like, hey, I'm working right now. Get back to the kitchen, please.
Yeah, this one.
I guess I would say gender is more specifically what objects you're in relation to rather than other people.
How, there might be a lot of truth to that, actually.
Well, I'll tell you what, I was grilling lobsters this weekend, and I was like,
oh, it was sexy.
I might as well be wearing a strap on right now. I'm rocking and rolling this whole house.
And I was reading my little book in the chair next to you, my little lesbian romance novels I'm obsessed
great.
with. And I was like, oh, my husband. It just felt great.
Yeah.
And it sounds like it was so fun for and
Yes.
it wasn't even necessarily in like a sexual way to reaffirm each other's genders. It was just a moment in which you were playing different roles.
Yes.
And that's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, like we've said with everything else, I think it's like, do it if it feels good, throw it away if it doesn't. That's what all this stuff is, right?
Truly. Put down baggage that isn't full of stuff you like.
Yes.
Well, and I think two people, we were talking about this at the airport the other day, but we were talking about how people are so, it's like so much of being in the LGBTQ plus community is being open to everyone. And as time goes on, I think you hear a lot of, older people be like, why are there so many gay people now? And it's like, well, there were always gay people, but it was a lot easier to just like, if you had any queerness in you, to just pretend it didn't exist if you didn't need to. And so there comes with that more people as things get more open and people become more educated and aware of what being gay even is. And I think there are some people in the queer community who liked it small. They liked the group being small. They liked being the only lesbian in their town, it felt, which is annoying. That's like an annoying that's like, it is not good. That makes you very, I know, but most of the time also it's not accepting of like, most of the time that person's white or is wanting things to be the same. They're like, I want to be a lesbian. I want to be accepted, but I want it to be like the 80s where I felt like I was the only person. And so I think sometimes, with that comes, people will identify as queer and people are like, but why? Why are you queer? What about you makes you queer? How many people have you had sex with? Prove to me that you're queer.
Right.
And it's kind of like, we're probably all got a little, not everyone, but a lot of us are queer and you just shouldn't matter to you.
It's that thinking of like, well, the way I do something is the way this thing is done.
Yeah.
It's my experience of the world is how the world is.
Yes.
And so things that are different than that are not the way it's done.
And that doesn't mean that person, I think sometimes, once again, it all gets conflated because it's like, I've met a girl who's like, I'm queer and maybe has only dated like cis straight men and
Stresses.
men and like is annoying and is constantly like, I'm gay, and it's like screaming it and you're kind of like, you're annoying. Doesn't mean you're not bisexual. Like, you can still be bisexual and you also annoy me, and that doesn't mean that like other bisexual people need to have that taken out on them.
Totally.
I do think it's true. I think a lot of times there ends up being a lot of kind of infighting, especially with bisexual women and lesbians, and it's so useless, right? We should all just be there supporting each other.
Yeah.
But I think what it comes from is sometimes I know, for example, on both sides, I feel like because I've identified as bisexual, I've identified as a lesbian, I feel like when I identified as bisexual, I did come in contact with some women who were like, I don't want to date you because you're bisexual and would not give me the time of day. I don't know if it's biphobic or upsetting or wrong if a lesbian only wants to date other lesbians. I don't know. I don't feel that way and I don't have thoughts about it. I don't care about it.
I think people, you get to date whoever you want, even if you have a bad reason for not dating someone. I think it can be something to examine inside yourself.
Yes,
and,
absolutely. But that's your business. That has nothing to do with me.
You don't have to
I
date
don't
me, though,
care.
to figure it out.
Yeah, I don't care about it. I don't think I would date anyone really. So it doesn't matter to me what you think. If you're a lesbian that only wants to date other lesbians, I don't know. I've never met you, but they exist. So
I think you're
goodbye.
limiting your dating pool in a way that probably is not necessarily helpful to your future happiness.
Sure.
But, I don't know. It's on you.
Yeah, and that's your problem. I think that with lesbians, they sometimes, for example, me, I feel like I get approached sometimes with bisexual women being like, I hate my boyfriend. I wish I could date women. I would be dating women if I wasn't dating my boyfriend, like whatever. And I'm like, I don't care. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't care about your boyfriend. I don't care about you. In fact, I feel bad for your boyfriend. What you're saying about your boyfriend is really mean and he seems nice.
Yeah.
It's not, I think sometimes bisexual women can want validation, and I don't exist to validate you, because I also don't believe that anyone should have to validate anyone ever. I think that you should have to be respectful, but
you don't want to invalidate.
Yeah, you don't want to invalidate someone, but like, if you tell me you're bisexual, great, I don't care. You don't need to come up to me at a party and be like, well, I actually think men are bad and women are beautiful. I'm like, I don't care about that. That has nothing to do with
this
me.
This is, can we talk about movies?
Sure.
What have we done?
But you know what I mean? I'm like,
I know exactly what you mean.
Yeah, but that's like rare. So many of my friends are bisexual and are not like that at all and are normal. And I even think the people that are doing that, it comes from a place of them wanting to feel connected or feel, whatever. And I think that's great. I'm like, I think you could just do it in another way that doesn't shit on your boyfriend, because that isn't impressive to me and it makes me feel bad for him. And B, is something that we can like actually more connect on, because I do think you're valid. And I think bisexual women struggle with being seen as valid by some lesbians. And I think lesbians can get a bad rap in general, but also like there are lesbians that suck just like every other group. There are lesbians that are turfy, just like, like every other group of people.
There
it's
are
like,
people that are bad.
Yeah. So I'm kind of like, I think there's a lot of infighting because of these two things. But I think if we just realize like annoying people are annoying regardless of what their gender identity is, people that are shitty no matter what their gender identity is, let's just like support each other.
Well, and
more.
People have so many weird, I've heard people talk about the weirdest things they won't date someone for, that are bizarre, that I'm like, oh, interesting. Because they in the past had an experience with someone. Like, well, I won't date anyone whose parents work in oil. I'm like, okay, well, I mean, you can date me then. That's great. But
sure.
I'm not. But people have all these weird things. And I do think sometimes bisexual people, from what I've heard, get kind of this, they have to be really careful to not like hurt a lesbian or gay person's feelings, because and it's like, but this is dating. Like, you will date people who are shitty to you. Like, I've only dated lesbians and I've had some really shitty things happen to me. I've had people randomly just be like, no, I'm not interested anymore, and that happens with anyone.
Yes.
That's not a response to you. That's just also a separate thought.
Okay.
Well, and to tie them together, I think that there's...
That's why you're here.
Hey, look at this. There is... to defend and then not defend a lesbian who might not date a woman because she's bisexual. There's a stereotype about bisexual people, which is that they can't commit to anyone. In my case, that's true, but that's not because I'm bi. That's because I'm fucked up in other ways.
Yeah, it's because you're a pervert.
Yeah, exactly. I'm insatiable.
Yeah.
But
that's so weird, because how many, you'd say, I feel like the same stereotype could be said for any man.
Certainly.
Gay men
yeah.
specifically.
Yeah. However, I do understand wanting to date someone who there's a potential future with. I think that's flawed thinking in two ways. Number one, you don't know if there's going to be a potential future with this person. Number two, I think goal-oriented dating in general, I have been best served when I enter relationships without the thought of like, where's this going? Of like, ooh, I'm really having a good time hanging out with this person, and letting each night be its own thing. So I fear...
How long does that go on for?
You
said it's never stopped.
It's never stopped. It stops being fun without knowing what's next at a certain point.
Yeah.
And when things stop being fun are the time to end them, I guess at whatever stage you're in. That's not really, that's a me thing, maybe. I run the first sign of trouble.
Yeah.
But I feel these lesbians are disserved by getting so far ahead of themselves in imagining a future with this person rather than being present with this person right now. Sure. And like, oh, we're vibing. You're bisexual? We're vibing anyway.
That's, I think, what I was trying to... at one point was like, this does connect to what you're saying. And I think that was it, where it's like, well, you don't know what... I guess my point was, it's like if you date a lesbian, they could do.
Lesbians cheat all the time. You see it on TikTok. You see it on
see it
TikTok.
online.
Lesbians
People
cheat all the time.
cheat all the time.
But exactly, so it's like you can't plan that far ahead.
Yeah.
Even like we plan our future. We're getting married, but it's like if someone would be like, "Are you gun to your head? No, we're going to be in 40 years." I'm like, who knows? Jordan could be married to Sarah
Say
Paulson
it.
in
Say
40
it,
years.
yeah.
We're not that guaranteed another 40 years.
Absolutely.
We've got time's a wasting, folks.
Yeah, absolutely.
Make yourself happy now because you don't know when you'll get to in the future.
Yeah, that's why I got a Coke Icy on the way here.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's
Oh,
so
hell
scary.
yeah.
We were thinking that because we were talking. We just went to Maine and we were on the lake and we were
Grilling
like,
lobster.
we were grilling
I was
lobster.
grilling lobster.
And Jordan and I we kayaked out, and I was like, we were talking about how we should buy a lake house one day because we're like, it's so nice being just like I would come out every morning and on my kayak and I would eat breakfast or whatever in this kayak. I'm sure I wouldn't actually do this, but in my idealized version of me living on a lake, and we were like, yeah, maybe when we're like retired, we can move to a lake. And we're like, but if we don't do it now, we just might never live on a lake. But I don't have time to move to a lake right now.
What?
But it is so scary when you're like, we're not guaranteed to live even the next 10 years.
We all have a finite amount of life to live, and we'll leave a lot of experiences on the table. That's just a fact of life.
Well, that leads us into our final question. Wow, it's almost
This
like
is a scripted
told you
podcast.
this was scripted. Yeah.
Swish.
Um,
That was the
on, where'd it
worst
go?
basketball shot.
No, no.
anyone's-
You
went-
If that's odd, that was the. Maybe I am just gay.
yeah. Like I said earlier, you're very tall, so it's okay.
Yeah, I'm fine.
Are there
Yeah.
any gay male basketball players?
I'm sure.
I mean, not in the world. I mean, in like the NBA.
Probably.
NBA?
NBA.
The NBA.
NBA. I keep calling it the MBA, which is a degree in musical theater, isn't it?
An MBA is a business degree.
Oh.
Masters of Business Administration.
Yeah.
Are there any?
A BFA is what we both have.
BFA is what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ask what you make more money with.
Wait, I had a real question. I'm trying to find it. Okay, I got it. Say your thing.
My thing was, I don't know.
I want to hear it.
And that's, I don't know if there are any out gay
I'll Google
basketball
it.
players in there. I don't believe so. I think if there were, I'd know.
Yes.
Because
you would have had sex with them.
I would have
God.
been like, should we compare or what are we looking at?
Yeah.
We're
Can
both the
tell
same
you,
height.
I went through, and then we'll get to your question. I'm so sorry. I went through almost, I would call it depression the other day because we went to a WNBA game. Have you ever been to a WNBA game?
I have.
It's gay. Which
Yeah.
everyone knows, but it feels almost inappropriate. But where like anytime they do anything, even like they miss the shot, they're grabbing each other's
I
asses.
can't tell you this enough. That's every sport, and you just don't believe me.
That is
That's
actually- that is every sport.
Well, I'll tell you this: I did golf for 10 years. That is not how we did it in golf.
I did it. I swam for a while, and that's a lot of what we did.
That's
But-
even crazier because
but-
you're nude.
Well, yeah. I think that's why I liked it so much. I think that's why I was such a good swimmer.
Swimming is gay. The ocean is very gay.
Oh,
The
isn't it
ocean, I
great?
would say, is a little bi.
Sure.
Yeah, the
Very
ocean wants
fluid.
everyone.
Yeah,
the
anyone
ocean's
and
like,
everything.
get in here.
But
Yeah.
I went through a depression where I turned to Jordan after walking out and I went, I should have done a sport. I don't know why. I felt this need. I was like, I wish I had at least a couple years where I was just out on a court having women smack my ass after I did something cool.
Yeah. Well, we all have a finite amount of life to live.
Maybe I'll join a rec league.
Sorry, Kendall. Sometimes I worry I'll regret not marrying a woman eventually, despite loving my male partner.
That's tough. Yeah, that's tough. Well, I it does relate a lot to what we were saying. You will have regrets. Yeah. Yeah.
Or at least curiosity.
Yeah.
Well, you'll never know what's gonna. I mean, and you can have that once again. I'm not trying to make it seem like there's no difference to anyone's dating experience, but I am like when you're in a long-term relationship, there is an acknowledgement of like, well, if we get married and we're together forever, there is a different life I would have lived if I dated anyone else.
That's what I always say. I'm like, in the grand scheme of things, being married to a man and being married to a woman it's the same.
Yes.
Unless you're dating like really like gendered, like a man who's really masculine and into like working and you being a stay-at-home mom.
But
then that's
you
a
could
life
date a
you
woman
could-
like that or whatever.
It's
Do you know
true.
what I mean?
I
I'm
guess
like,
it's
it's no different. It's all dependent on the person, not the gender, right? But being married to a man versus being married to a woman, like there is no difference. There's a lot of people you won't be married to.
That's exactly
so
right.
you will not be married to
Not
a
me.
woman, but you
Well.
yeah,
I'm
Kendall's gonna marry everyone.
Everybody, that's my goal.
Yeah, but you like
Oh, you are a lesbian.
yeah. it's like you won't marry a woman, but there's also a bunch of other men you won't marry. And I think once you think about it like that, it's not just like, oh, I'm missing out on this one thing. It's
you're
like
missing out on everything.
Yeah, well, it's just acknowledging that you're making a choice to be with this one person, and there's lots of other options out there. And if you want to open up your relationship, or if you just want to be with this person, just be with this person. But you're not just not marrying a woman. You're not marrying tons of people.
And also, I feel like there's misconceptions on the internet where you'll see these TikToks of people being like, I'm so glad I'm in a lesbian relationship. And it's them like having a slumber party and like giggling with one another. And they're like, every night it's like this because we're girls. And every night we braid our hair. And everyone's like, no, it's hell. No, it's not.
Like
but it's like people are like, this is what it's like dating a girl. And I'm sure if you were a bisexual woman who's never dated a woman married to a man, it could feel like, oh my God, am I missing out on this magical cottagecore lesbian life?
It's not magical.
And it's like, I've never been married to a man. Imagine I out that right now. I've never been married to a man, but I feel everything that I see on heterosexual media feels very similar to my relationship.
Yeah.
It's
like
the same.
We've been together, we have romantic nights, we have fun nights, but also a lot of nights we're just scrolling on our phones. Sometimes we're giggling, sometimes we're not. I assume straight couples giggle.
I promise they've all had cute nights together too.
Yes.
They've had scroll on our phone nights.
Yes.
It's the best argument for monogamy for me is you both agree that you will deny yourselves the newness of another person as a way to recommit to the relationship, as a way to as giving something up for each other. And if that's an important symbol to both of you, then that's what you've agreed to do. And if in your relationship while you're married to this person, you won't have that.
Yeah.
You can negotiate that, or you can know that it would also come with its own problems, and that would be its own situation too.
Yeah.
Whatever you're thinking it would be, it won't be.
Yes, the grass is always greener.
It's gonna be, like you said, remarkably similar.
Yes.
The piping will be different, but the water will be the same.
100%.
And remembering that in 10 years, if you've been with someone 10 years and you see this new person and you're like, oh my God, what would our life be together? In 10 years with that person, you'll be in the same exact
Yes.
spot.
Yeah. So I would say to this person, yes, you are correct. You won't know what that is, and you may regret it. And I hope that the safety and love and joy and growth that you get from the relationship that you're in now outweighs that regret, because you're going to die with some. You're going to have regrets when you go.
Yeah.
And so...
Not me.
Well, sure. But you're going to be married to everyone. And that's... as someone
I'm gonna
who's...
be rich.
And I'm going to be married to no one. And that's also going to be awesome. That's way fun. So, yeah. And mourn the loss and enjoy what you have.
Yeah.
And talk to your partner about that.
Yeah.
I'll bet that could be something that at the very least you could
Make him put on a
share
wig.
and acknowledge with each other. And maybe that would lead to a cool moment of growth, or maybe it would just be an awkward conversation. But
you unfortunately get one life. And I have that, more, I don't have relationship anxiety about that, but I get career anxiety about that, where all of a sudden I'll be like, well, I'm never going to be an astronaut, ever. I'm never going to be that.
I get that.
I'm
if
never
going to
be a teacher.
And I'm like, I got Thai food. I could have had Mexican food. Like, it's
you get it all the time.
I know. It's just anxiety, so you got to let it go.
But I'm like, I live in LA. I'll never live. Well, I guess I could move. But I'm like, I'm never going to live. I'm never going to have been raised in Ireland, ever. That's a regret of mine.
I went to NYU, and I grew up basically on the campus of Ohio State. And now when I'm back home, I get nostalgic for things that never happened to me. Where it's like, oh, yeah, walking on the quad in between classes, which is like, no, I never did that, and I never will. And I'm not going to be in college again. That is simply how that's the nature. That's the finite nature of life.
Yeah.
Yes. Okay. The episode is wrapping up. I want to know if you have one top recommendation for dating as a bisexual person to lead to successful dating, or at least a good hookup. What's your number one most important piece of advice?
Boy, I'm going to take
I thought you went boys.
boys.
Okay.
I'm going to take good hookup off the table because that's complicated.
All right, I just
that's
want to
a
give you
long
as many
answer.
options
I
as
appreciate
possible.
it. One piece of advice for dating successfully as a bisexual person. Here's what it is. The best relationships that you find yourself in are going to be the ones where coming out happened quickly and naturally and easily. Stick with that. Trust things that are easy. Come out early, I guess I suppose, although if you don't, I get it. My advice is come out early, and I'm not going to do it. So
100%.
so that's what I'd say.
Not as you do.
That's exactly right.
Yeah, perfect. Well,
thank
Grant,
you so much for being here.
What a delight. Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, it's our treat. Is there anything you want to plug?
Yes, I am launching my own podcast called What Have You Been Drinking, where folks come on and tell me what their favorite drink lately is, and we drink it and we chat. I hope people enjoy it. It's really just an excuse to have drinks with people I like. Jordan's going to be on pretty soon.
I'm very excited.
Kendahl, you better believe you're getting an email pretty soon because it's weird to ask people to be on a podcast.
You have made me the best Mai Tai I've ever had.
I was about to say you are the best mixologist I've ever experienced.
I keep explaining that to people.
Yeah.
I keep saying
You're
I'm
incredible.
awesome at this.
You
I
are.
mean, that's why we love this podcast. Like when people are like, "Are you enjoying it?" I'm like, "Yeah." Like every time we have a guest, it's just someone we've been meaning. Like we've been being like, "We gotta hang out with this person," and life's busy.
Yeah.
And then you just get to chat with them and be like, "This is a treat."
A forced conversation with no phones.
Yes.
It's other than you guys had
No
phones.
phones, but
Come on.
You were reading. You were reading.
Well,
you were reading.
I was playing my game.
Well,
Yeah.
sure, of course.
No, but it's and I love a structured conversation.
Oh,
Like
it's the
I
best.
love when you have friends over and you play those games where you pull out the questions and they're so stupid. The questions are like, "What was your dream job?" I love that.
I don't care for that.
I love it.
I
don't
don't
know
care
about
for the gaming at all.
you. Don't
Next
care
time you
for
come on,
gaming
we're
at
gonna do that on your podcast.
Yeah.
Once I
Okay.
get that email.
All
Honestly,
right.
fun.
All right. Well, we will make sure to share your podcast when it comes out because we want everyone to listen to it. Because I just think you're a real treat and just the sweetest.
Oh, you guys are the best.
I think you're just the sweetest. And as always, we're filming in the Spotify offices, and we love it, appreciate them. You can get this podcast on Spotify and anywhere else you get your podcast. You can also watch this on YouTube. And as we said earlier, join our Patreon. It's not that expensive.
For a coffee a month, you could have more of us.
To be clear, we take money, not coffee.
Don't give us coffee. All right.
No, what? Well,
We
sell
can be
it.
swayed.
Arbitrage that coffee.
DM us and we'll see what we think.
Yeah, we'll see how nice the coffee is.
Thank you so much for being here. And thank you so much for being bisexual. And
My pleasure.
Same to all of our viewers. And I hope you have a wonderful Monday.
Bye.